This is the Raw Life Health Show. Raw Life.
Hello everybody, it's Paul Neeson with the Raw Life Health Show, and today I am making one of my favorite recipes. It's Spanish rice, a raw vegan version to Spanish rice. Now I used to make this all the time when I did food demos at Whole Foods across the country. I'm doing a food demonstration class coming up this weekend, so I figured I'd make it here for you guys so you guys can see it. Now what I'm going to do is I already made this recipe one time in half, and I'm going to cut it in half right now. So I'm going to put the recipe up here on the screen at some point in the video, and but I'm cutting it in half today, just to give you an idea how to make this. And we're going to get right into this, so I'm excited. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take 1 head of cauliflower. So cauliflower is going to be our rice. And what I have here now is a half a head of cauliflower, because I already used one. Remember I said I'm going to split this in half. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the half of cauliflower, and I'm going to take out the middle here, or just at least chop it up really well. Normally, what the directions are is you would put this in a food processor, and in a food processor you would get a grating blade, and it would grate it. But the S blade is just as fine as well, so you can use the S blade as well. And I'm going to cut this up here. So a half of head of cauliflower I'm going to cut up. And you don't need to cut it too fine, you just need enough where it's going to process in a processor, and usually that involves taking the stems off, and the rest of it usually falls apart pretty well. So this is one of the keys. This is going to be our rice that we're going to be using in the recipe. So we're taking the stem off of it, and again, if you cut the stem off really small, then you can put that in as well. It just won't process as well if you don't cut it. Right, so we got a half a head of cauliflower, and this is actually the only machine we're going to be using today, the food processor. It's a very simple recipe and delicious, very refreshing. So, okay, so now we're going to get the cover to the food processor. And now we're processing it. And we want to get it to a fine consistency. We don't want to have any pieces left over. And there we go. So I'll show you all what it looks like on the camera. There it is. You see, it's a very fine consistency. Okay, so that's going to be the rice. And what we'll do is we'll simply take this. We've got a bowl here, so we're simply just going to take the cauliflower. Remember, this is a half of the recipe. We're going to take the recipe, we're going to put it right into a bowl here. Okay, so you want to get all of that. A spatula would be nice if you have one. So we have our rice in here. So we no longer need the food processor, so we can remove that. Remove the food processor for the moment. Okay, so now we have our rice in the bowl here. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to just simply add the ingredients that it calls for. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add, the recipe calls for 4 green scallions, but we're just going to do 2 because we're cutting it in half, right? So it really calls for a green onion, and this is a green onion. It's a scallion. So not everyone knows, but this is a green onion. So we're going to simply cut 2 green onions. Get a knife here. And what we're doing with the onions is we're cutting off the ends. We're cutting off the ends of this. So we're cutting it here and we're cutting it here. And you'll see here. So I'll take one. There. So now this is 2 green onions. So we have to see what our 2 green onions look like now. And with our 2 green onions, I'm just going to dice these. Or first I'm going to slice these and then I'll dice these. I believe in having recipes that are very simple to make and practical, recipes that somebody can make for their family on a regular basis, and not things that are very complicated. The complicated recipes are okay for special occasions, but in general, you want to make things that are quick and easy, and that tastes good, of course. And that's going to be the most practical things we can do. So we're just going to dice that, and we're just going to simply add those into the mix, into the rice. So we got our scallions. The next thing we're going to get is we're going to get the juice actually we're going to get 2 tomatoes and dice them. So since we're only doing this one time, we're going to get 1 tomato. And I just picked this tomato right off my tree in the garden, my tomato tree or my tomato plant. So we have 1 tomato here. We're going to just slice and dice. See, again, the recipe called for 2, but I'm just going to do 1. So let's see here. So we're going to dice 1 tomato. And I'm using a serrated knife for the tomatoes. That's important, to use a serrated knife for the tomatoes. A sharper knife that can be used to cut other things, it's just not going to cut as well as a serrated knife when you have things like tomatoes, and especially the sharper knife is nice when you're chopping and dicing. So I might switch to the sharper knife, but when I'm slicing the tomato, I'm starting off using the serrated blade. So I'm just going to cut that up here. And remember, you can do your own variation, and then I'm going to take the chopping one and chop it. You can use your own variation to how much of the tomatoes and how much of the onions and everything else you want to add. But what I suggest always is the first time you make it according to the directions. And then, so you know how it'll taste. And then you can add or take away whatever you want, and you can just maybe switch it up a little. So sometimes I like to switch them up, but I'm just dicing the tomatoes, and we're just going to add those. Alright, so I'm going to add those to the mix. So the recipe called for 2 tomatoes, but since we're just doing this recipe in half, we just put 1 tomato. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do according to the recipe is we're going to add 1 orange bell pepper. Of course, you can use red or green or some other color, yellow, but the recipe calls for an orange. I'm going to use an orange. I have a half an orange pepper right here, and I'm going to dice this up and add it. I want to make sure it slices, or at least it dices very nicely, so you can have it all mixed in the recipe really nice. So. Okay, so we got our orange bell pepper here. If you're going to grow food, bell peppers are great to grow because organic peppers are really a lot of money in the store. Growing red peppers or orange or yellow peppers, colored peppers, is one of the things that are wise to do. Okay, so I got my diced orange pepper, half an orange pepper, because I'm cutting the recipe in half. So I put that in there. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take, now it says a jalapeno pepper, to take a jalapeno pepper. Now, I didn't get a jalapeno peppers because I have peppers in my yard, but these peppers are super hot. These peppers I have in my yard. They're literally hotter than a jalapeno pepper. So I'm not going to put it in this recipe as much. It calls for, the recipe says 1 jalapeno pepper. And I'm just going to take a little tiny piece of this because I made this previously with 1 or at least a half of this pepper. And this pepper was so much hotter, and it just made the whole recipe taste really hot. So I'm just going to chop up a little tiny piece of that. And some of you might not want that at all even. And it's fine because it doesn't have to be really spicy. It could be a little bit more mild if you choose to do so. The next thing we're going to take is we're going to take The recipe calls for a quarter cup of cilantro, fresh cilantro diced. And again, we're cutting this recipe in half. So I have here some cilantro, and I'll get not exactly a quarter cup. I'll just get a little cilantro here. And again, you could always add more if you need to, or if you choose to do so. So chop up this cilantro here. Throw that in there. So the next thing we're going to get, according to the recipe, is, and all of this is really following the recipe. You know, that's why I would say raw foods aren't that difficult to do, as long as you know how to follow ingredients. And so the next thing it says is 1 avocado mashed in, and I'm going to save that to the end. So we're going to skip that. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to get some spices now. So we have chili powder and paprika. So we have paprika and chili powder, and I'm just going to get a measuring spoon here. Okay, so the recipe calls for on the chili powder 1 teaspoon, but we are doing this. We're doing this half a recipe, so I'm just going to do a half a teaspoon instead of 1 whole teaspoon. So half a teaspoon of chili powder, and then half a teaspoon of the paprika. So a half a teaspoon of the chili powder. And then we have, it says 1 tablespoon of the paprika, so I'm going to do a half a tablespoon. Half a tablespoon of the paprika. Okay. Okay. And next we have here is it says 1 teaspoon of salt. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put a half a teaspoon of salt. Salt is important. You don't want to put too much, but you can always add more later. But if you put too much to begin with, then you run into a problem. So it's always better to put a little less if you're not sure, and then add more later. But don't put too much, you know, make sure, be careful with that. Then it says a quarter cup of extra virgin pressed olive oil. So it says a quarter cup, that is for a full recipe, but we are doing a half a recipe, so we're not going to go a quarter cup. We're going to do less than that. So we're going to take a quarter cup and fill it up in half. So how's that? And then I'm going to pour that in. So we got a quarter cup, half of that. I'm just going to pour that in. Okay. And then as we continue here, it says 2 tablespoons of fresh lemon juice. So we're just going to take 1 tablespoon of fresh lemon juice, and I kind of already know what 1 tablespoon is of fresh lemon juice, so I'll just squeeze it in there. So I've been doing this for a very long time, and it doesn't matter if you have a little extra lemon or not. And then finally, our half an avocado, which we'll take our spoon and mash in here. So we'll take a half an avocado, mash it in here. And a lot of people always say they think it's too complicated to make raw foods, but I have so many recipes that show people how it's quick and easy and delicious, and it complements any meal, this Spanish rice. So we gotta mash, we're gonna mix that all together, and we're gonna mash in the avocado. You wanna mash it in really well. Some people, if you really, really love avocado, you might want to add even more avocado to this one. But regardless, if you use just the right amount or if you use more, you want to make sure you mash it in, because you don't want to have avocado chunks. You want to really just mash it all in. You can almost mash the avocado separately and just add it later if you want to make sure you've mashed it all, because you don't just want to have avocado chunks. So that might not be a bad idea either. This one was very ripe, so I just figured I'd put it in here. And this is just looking great. Again, you be careful with the pepper. If it's too hot, or if you have children that don't like spicy, you might want to leave that out. And this is the recipe. So, alrighty. So there it is. It was that simple. There's our recipe. And I'll put this on a plate and make it look nice. But that's Spanish rice. And let's do our little taste test now. Oh, this is going to be great. All right. All right, everybody. That was the recipe. If you have any comments or questions, post them below the video. And I'll post a picture here of how it looks all made nice. All right? Love making raw vegan food. And until then, everybody have a great day and a great raw life. Thanks for watching.
This is the Raw Life Health Show. Raw Life, bright and